Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm an interviewer, journalist and broadcaster. And for the first decade of this century, I did for the Irish radio station RTE Radio 1 a music series titled Under the Influence. Sadly, that title was subsequently used, be it stolen consciously or otherwise, for a similar MTV show. So now, after revisiting the master tapes of those old interviews, I've decided to turn the best into a podcast series called The Music That Made Me. I may even add the subtitle, Made Me Want to Make Music. Either way, what follows is one of those shows, minus music, which for copyright reasons I can't include. Some of the full shows and many of my other radio programs are available on Mixcloud.com. And if you want to read any articles that arose out of these interviews, you can check out joejacksoninterviewer.com. Enjoy the show.
Push my chair back and wham.
Okay, Katie.
Yes.
Everybody?
Check, 1, 2.
Hello there, Joe.
Are you hearing the Ireland?
Check.
Okay, we have Katie here.
Okay. Hi, this is Joe Jackson here. Wondering if anybody can hear me out there.
Yeah, we could hear you.
Very good.
I can hear Joe.
Hello.
Hello. You're in such trouble.
I know. Tried to mention it only 5 times during the program.
Okay. You are in such trouble. No, it happens all the time. Don't worry about it.
Oh, but I nearly died when you left that day. Okay, whenever I did. Did you ever go from elation to depression in about half a second?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Good, happy to hear. All right, okay, I'm sure you have. Within the same song. Okay, are we ready?
No problem. I just can't hear myself now.
This is the kindest phrase for it.
How's that for you, Katie?
Check, 1, 2. Thanks.
Are we all right?
We're good to go over here.
Yeah, we're good to go here too. Okay, are we ready? Katie Lang, welcome for the second time to Under the Influence, and I want to explain to listeners that we did this one time when you were in Dublin, and because of a technical hitch, the damn thing didn't come out. So you've been very kind to go to a studio in Los Angeles and do it with me over the phone. Thank you.
Yes, Joe, no problem. For you, anything.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, I'm going to get you just like I did the first time by saying, isn't one of the first songs that you ever loved, wasn't it a song called Julie, Do You Love Me? And I believe it was inspired by a particular person in your life.
It was. Julie, 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 Do You Love Me was a song by Bobby Sherman. It was the first record I ever bought, and it was because I had when I was about grade 1, so I was about 5 or 6 years old. I had a swimming instructor who was very nice to look at, and I was a very good student because of it, and her name was Julie.
Okay, so you sang this secretly to her?
I did.
Okay, well, maybe she's listening, so let's play it.
Probably not so secretly.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, okay. All right, so let's hear Julie, 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 Do You Love Me? Okay, Katie, we're not going to play the music. We're just going to go through with the talking.
Yep, no problem.
Great stuff. All right. Julie, Do You Love Me? That was Bobby Sherman. Katie, that's a name. I even talked to my producer before the show that we just don't know over here. Was he one of those teen idols like David Cassidy or something like that?
I think so. As I said, I was about 6, so I don't really know that much about him. But I think he was like a teen idol, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So talk about there's the plurality of musical influences you had at home. I mean, your career has gone on with you taking on most forms of music, and you actually heard all kinds of music in the family setting, didn't you?
Yeah, I was the youngest of 4 children, all who studied classical piano. So for years and years and years, my early influences was classical music, from everything from Shostakovich to Bartók to Chopin, because my siblings would come home from school and they would be practicing their piano, and it would be for hours and hours. So I think that's where my ear began and where my musical sense began. Then my sister, who's next to me, who's 5 years older, had a really great record collection and listened to Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett and Maria Mulder, early Linda Ronstadt, Graham Parsons, Emmylou Harris, Cream, Eric Clapton. So I got really influenced by her collection too as I got older.
But you also got guitar, didn't you? You got a guitar very young. You got it around 12 and you were playing it yourself.
Yeah, I got a guitar, I think maybe earlier than 12, maybe around 10 or 11, and started writing songs as early as 8, but really started writing as a singer-songwriter at about 13.
Are you going to give us your first lyric? Can you remember it?
My first lyric was called "Hoping My Dreams Would Come True."
Are you going to give us the lyric?
I don't really remember them, actually.
Okay, but you also listened to, which I found fascinating, and we talked about it before, there was kind of music by great orchestras. Your daddy, was it your daddy who played stuff by the likes of Percy Faith and that? And I think you want to hear me play Canadian Sunset.
Absolutely. My dad and I used to traipse around the countryside going to black powder shoots where you have to load, your gun with black powder and a lead ball and a piece of cloth and make a bullet out of it. And that was his hobby. And of course, as the tomboy, I pretty much did whatever my dad wanted to do. So we would traipse around the country in an old Ford, actually a beautiful Ford Mercury Brougham, which was a very big luxury car at that time. And he would plug in the 8-track tapes, and often it would be Montavani and Percy Faith, and it would be late at night, and we'd be listening to these. And I really, really have such appreciation for orchestrated instrumental music because of that. And as we talked, I'd like to play Percy Faith, Canadian Sunset.
You got it. Okay, Katie, coming out of we talked about this. You kind of your family fragmented when you were 12, but you said that didn't really have as deep an influence on you than I had read prior to our meeting.
Well, I'm sure it had a huge impact on me. It's just that somehow England and Europe have made such a huge deal out of it. When it's just one of those things in your life that you experience and then you move on. I was very upset that my father left. When I was 12, left the family, and I think the thing I was most upset about is the impact it had on my mother, and I became very protective of my mother, and I'm sure it had a huge psychological impact, but it's not something that I feel has burdened me or actually shifted my psychological direction one way or the other tremendously.
But there is, and you have tapped into very often, a sadness in your soul that comes along in a lot of your recordings. It's not necessarily rooted in that, though. It's rooted in life in general.
Well, I think there's as much sadness as there is celebration and humor. I think sadness, that's part of a singer's job, is to be able to emote sadness and to have empathy and compassion for the listener and translate that to the listener. But
it's not the defining feature by far.
I don't think so. Right. I really don't.
Okay.
I'm a very happy person in the core of.
You also, and we alluded to it earlier, and I'd like some listeners would be interested in the fact that you said you had a crush on Julie, and you were very young when you actually told your mum you had identified yourself as gay, and that seems to have been something that was a lot of people of 17 or whatever age are not able to tell their parents.
Yeah, it was. I just felt, I felt really close to my mother. I had a very great relationship with her, and I knew that if I wasn't going to be honest with a huge part of my life, that it would be very detrimental to our relationship. So I just chose to come out to her, and it was difficult at first for her, but in the long run, I think she realized that it's actually an amazing tribute to her ability to raise me with the confidence to be myself. So I think she takes pride in it now. That's
great, but you weren't the only gay person in your family, which is another aspect of it all too.
No, yeah, there's three out of 4 kids are gay in my family.
Okay.
So it was a big blow, but
for her.
For her.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we want to play Joni Mitchell. She's obviously someone you cover on your new album that we're going to get to later. But Joni was obviously a huge influence, and you like the song Black Crow.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell, I think worldwide, but especially for Canadian singer-songwriters, Joni Mitchell is just it's unprecedented, the amount of influence she's had on Canadian singer-songwriters. I just really think she's probably the best lyricist in the world. And Black Crow just was like sort of a precursor to my own life and the travel and the allure of life on the road.
Let's hear Black Crow. Katie Lang, we're coming out of Joni Mitchell singing Black Crow. You originally became a performance artist, and that kind of took you, that influenced how you then performed certain styles of music, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Performance art means, conceptual. I don't know. It's hard to define performance art, but it's conceptual, and it's on many levels. It's making a social commentary. So, coming out of that, I was really searching for something to really sink my teeth into, and as I do very often, I look for contrast. So I leaned towards country music.
This was after the kind of punk days.
Yeah, after the punk days, and country seemed very alluring to me, very traditional, very kind of Christian and male and very straight, and I found that very exciting to go in there and mess it up.
The idea of subversion.
Yeah, subversive. Yeah, rebellion.
Well, you also... Go ahead, sorry.
What's that, Jeff?
No, you also said at one point, I thought it was very funny, I had asked you that why you weren't broadly accepted in the world of country music, and you said, I'll give you 3 reasons: Buddhist, vegetarian, and lesbian. That ain't going to go down too well in the right-wing world of country, is it?
No, not so good. But they did appreciate my... I brought a lot of new listeners and a lot of youngsters to country music that hadn't really. So it was kind of like this weird user-friendly relationship with Nashville.
Well, I actually think the time where you came in with the Patsy Cline influenced album, and the Cowboy Junkies came on board and Dwight Yoakam, I think it was the most exciting time for people like me who hadn't been into country, and I was one of those listeners who thought there's another sensibility going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a kind of a kitsch romanticizing of our own American culture, and it was very exciting, very, very exciting. But all through the history of country music, there's been these pockets of outlaw country, starting with Bob Wills and introducing drums into country, and then Johnny Cash and Waylon and Willie and those guys, and then Dwight and myself and Steve Earle and Lon Lovett, and
all right,
and it continues, now with the Dixie Chicks, and it continues.
Well, we hear you're talking about kitsch and romantic, and I'm going to read a quote that you apparently made, where you said when you heard the song "I Wish I Didn't Love You So," it seemed to turn the sky purple and make the moon full. Did you say that, Katie?
If you say I did, Joe.
But do you want to hear it?
Yes, I do want to hear it.
We'll play this from the album we've just been talking about, Shadowland. Okay, KD, we're doing great. KD, I was kidding there about the way Nashville wasn't able to embrace, or was a bit reluctant to embrace aspects of you. But when I first talked to you, it was for Hot Press Magazine back in 1989, and you said when you were recording the album that had Patsy Cline covers, you would actually feel you could commune with her spirit, or you wanted to, in advance of a recording. Some may have thought that was a bit strange, but that's another aspect of your singing, isn't it? The spiritual dimension and that kind of root.
Absolutely. Well, I think everyone, even sports figures, I think anyone who has to rely on inspiration has some sort of muse or superstition or whatever you call it. And at that time, Patsy Cline was very, very much my muse. And she was really very much responsible for igniting this inspiration in me to do the whole country thing. And so I was forever grateful to her. I still am.
But you would take, I think I joked about that, it's not an unusual notion in rock. I've read about Bono on the tour, on the Zooropa tour, actually talking to a picture of Elvis in advance of a gig and almost saying to Elvis, give me the energy to get through this. So it is a kind of something that maybe people could understand. Roy Orbison also was a huge influence for you and like you, wasn't he?
Well, Roy Orbison became a huge influence. I had the good fortune of singing Crying with him as a duet in 1987, I think, for a movie soundtrack. Before that, I wasn't that familiar with Roy Orbison, but through working with Roy on the soundtrack and, of course, recording Crying, which was, probably one of the greatest gifts in my career.
All right.
But we did the Black and White Nights with Roy, and Tom Waits was there, and Bonnie Raitt and Elvis Costello and Bruce Springsteen and all this huge number of people, and I was a part of the group that sang background for that taping, and through that, studying his music and learning all the background parts, really, it's just incredible, his songwriting ability and how he really took the common structure of pop music and completely disregarded it and wrote songs that had no common structure whatsoever, but they were these beautiful little pieces of pop opera. I think he was very influenced by Spanish opera, actually.
Yeah, I think he was. The bolero beat was central to his work. Actually, I hadn't talked about this, but if you say it was one of the greatest gifts, could we and will we play You and He Singing Crying?
Sure, yeah.
Let's hear it again. Okay, Katie Lang, coming out of an immensely moving... I remember seeing that TV show, The Black and White Night, and you guys all looked like you were in heaven, especially the backing vocalists doing those doo-wops and dum-dum-dum-dummy-doo-wah and whatever.
Such an amazingly integral part to his sound were those backgrounds, and they were very intricate. It took us that was a lot of work because, whether it was a shooby or a doobie, it's a big difference. And you had to learn everything, and the range of the backgrounds was huge and tremendous. So it was a lot of fun, and I really learned a lot.
Great stuff. I would like to play a track from Absolute Torture and Twang. Trail of Broken Hearts is the one you chose. Why that in particular?
I think Trail of Broken Hearts marked a shift in really focusing on traditional country and sort of incorporating my future into what was happening in country and kind of developing this new sort of countrypolitan thing with that Torch and Twang and Pulling Back the Reins. And it sort of marked my... I guess it sort of marked my departure from country music and into the record that followed Torch and Twang, which was Ingenue.
Yeah, okay. Well, shall we hear? Did I say Torch or Twang? Did I give it the wrong title there? I am so sorry.
No,
if I
don't
did.
think so.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Torch and Twang.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So, well, let's play that. I'd love to hear that again. Okay. Katie Lang there. Sorry. Katie, there was one thing I remember. I told you I saw you in Dublin Stadium, I think around 1990, and you reappropriated Mr. Elvis Presley, and you chose a song that I've never heard anybody even refer to from his movie Spin Out called I'll Be Back. You were basically saying, I remember you once said Elvis is alive and he's Madonna. Well, that night I thought Elvis is alive and he's Katie Lang.
Well, actually, Madonna said, Elvis is alive and she's beautiful about me.
Oh, really? Okay, so Madonna and I have something in common. But why did you were basically reappropriating a kind of male sex symbol and saying, whatever he or they can do, I can do just as well. Was that the conceptual idea?
I guess in effect it was. I don't think that I ever tried to go, well, I can do it. I just did it. Okay. I mean, I didn't even think, I shouldn't be doing it. I just did it.
Okay, but sorry, I want to move on. The album. Oh, you mentioned the album Ingenue, which to me is just one of the classic albums of popular music. There's a great range of musical influences on it that comes as like it's almost Eastern influences come through at points. It's a magnificent LP, and the song I had chosen was "Season of Hollow Soul." But maybe there's another track that you think we could play, or will we stick with that? If there's a track that you think would let people hear just how great the album is.
Well, Season of Hollow Soul is perfect. I love it.
Okay, great. And would you tell me again what it's a very poetic lyric. Tell me again what was the idea behind it, how it came about.
Yeah, I was living in Vancouver, Canada at the time, and there's this wonderful park in the middle of town called Stanley Park, and it's a very heavily forested area, big, tall cedar trees. And I would walk every day while I was writing the record, and there'd be these fallen trees, these huge trunks laying on the ground, and the peripheral of the tree would still be intact, but the center, the core of the tree would be hollow. And I was just fascinated by the fact that another cedar tree would have gained foundation on top of that trunk tree, that fallen trunk, and start growing. So within death, there's life. And I was just really fascinated with this cyclical... I guess the cyclical reference that it would give you. And I love the idea of life coming from death and that whole process.
Is that a reflection of a specific religious base you have?
Yeah, very much. I'm a Buddhist, so reincarnation is a part of my understanding.
So that's what the tree and this song indicates and suggests for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's hear Season of Hollow Soul. Great song. Fun, I can even hear it in my skull. Isn't it great? You know? No, I'm just Irish. I'm saying that to myself here.
Well, the show is called Under the Influence.
That's absolutely true. Okay.
And I know, I was just in Dublin last week, and I had the best Guinness of my life.
Oh, did you? All right, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want us to ship you over a crate for Christmas?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, going back into the show. KD, have you ever regretted coming out publicly? Were you ever afraid that it would become, and I've kept the subject to a minimum in this show, but have you ever been afraid that it would become the focus of attention rather than the art and the music?
Well, certainly at the height of it in 1992, 93, 94, it was definitely, my music was definitely overshadowed by my sexuality, my sexual preference. And I think that, you know, in hindsight, it's the best thing I ever did. I mean, while I was in the barrage of it, I think it got a little bit monotonous and tiresome. And but I knew that if I just kind of kept my focus and just kept answering the questions as openly and honestly as I could, because it's certainly a wonderful opportunity to educate people on a culture that they might not understand. And I knew that in the long run, if I just kept steady, that the focus would shift back onto my music.
Okay, so, and did anybody in the record industry ever say you shouldn't have done that?
No one said I shouldn't have.
Right.
People said don't do it, but no one said you shouldn't have after I did it.
Okay, all right. So I want to go on to you're on the last album before this one was called Invincible Summer, and it was a celebration of what seemed to be a very joyful love affair. Are you still as joyful? I won't even ask if you're still in that love affair. Are you still as joyful? It was a very celebratory album.
I'm still as joyful. I'm not still in that relationship.
Okay. Are you still in love? Are you in love?
Yes, I am in love.
Okay. There's one of those prying, probing questions she cuts off really well. I appreciate that. Can let's play, I'd love to play a Joni song actually from your new album, A Case of You. And this is a particularly poetic, metaphysical lyric. It's a beautiful lyric and song, and you very much appreciate it at those levels.
Definitely. Joni Mitchell, I think this is the Canadian national anthem, really.
And what is it though about? What is it about what does the song signify? You know, the style of love it sings about, it tells about.
Well, I just find it a very, you know, obviously the you know, you're in my blood like holy wine. It's this, you know, very deeply spiritual song. I think that you know, that puts love into the realm of communion, I guess, and just really, you know, that the very essence of that person is flowing in their blood. I mean, it can't really get deeper than that. So
it's a religious secular song, or a secular religious song?
Well, I think it is. I think it has spiritual context, yeah.
Absolutely. Let's hear A Case of You. Okay, I'm drawing a blank here. It's Hymns of the 49th Parallel, isn't it? KD?
Hymns of the 49th Parallel.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I haven't mentioned that, have I not? Okay, we'll do it now. Okay, there you heard A Case of You from Katie Lang's latest album, Hymns of the 49th Parallel. So there was another song on it that you'd like us to play, which is an original.
Yeah, Simple is a song that my bass player David Pilch and I wrote, actually for Invincible Summer in 2000. And my managers and my friends, when I was making Hymns of the 49th Parallel, suggested that I should put one of my own on, and I was like, no. I would never put myself in the company of the great Canadian songwriters.
Because we should remind listeners, that's what the album is. It's a celebration of Canadian singer-songwriters.
Right.
That's its concept.
Yeah, it's concept. I didn't really want to put myself in that group because I highly revere those songwriters, but they talked me into it, and I redid the song Simple, and basically because I thought thematically it fit so nicely into the album.
Katie, I mean, to many of us, you are one of the great Canadian singer-songwriters, so to hell with that. Don't worry about putting it in. Let's hear it. Okay, why not? All right, we're leading towards the end. Yeah, great. Katie Lang, I'd like to end with one of the great Canadian singer-songwriter for many of us has been for a very long time, Leonard Cohen. And I know the song we're going to end with has been covered by tons of people, such as Bono and that, but it's still a magnificent, again, it's a secular religious song, and it's suitably called Hallelujah.
Yeah, Leonard is just one of the great prophets of human nature and the human condition. I just think Hallelujah has so many different dimensions to it and subtext to it. I think as a lyric and as a singer, I just never get tired of exploring where the lyric takes me and the story that it tells me, and how many ways you can interpret it. I think that's why it's just been done for so many times so recently. It's just ripe with interpretation.
And has Lenny gotten back to you? Would Leonard have heard this, or would it?
I think that
I can almost see you smiling. He's there with you. You've a surprise from me. He's right beside you, right?
Yeah.
So has he? Has he?
Well, I sent him the album and I got a note back saying thank you. But he's been covered by so many people. I'm sure my interpretation is not going to mean that much to him.
Well, I would suggest, I once saw, I think it was a feminist critique of Cohen, and I think when Jennifer Warnes did an album of his songs, that was when a lot of critics noticed that they weren't just the songs of a man. They weren't gender specific. So maybe a woman, maybe you doing Hallelujah might just mean a little bit more to him at that level alone.
Maybe. Well, that would be great.
Okay. Katie Lang, I thank you again, and I promise you there has been no technical hitch. We will not have to do this again, but I would love to do it again, maybe the next album or the one after that, for maybe print. It was great talking to you again.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff, I loved it. You were very kind to do that again, Katie. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, you too.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. More can be heard, as I said, at joejacksoninterviewer.com.